It's a mind of its own. Okay, Kinderlach. We're completing the sikha we were doing. Somebody needs their copy. Now, yeah, I have some copies left. Now, who needs a copy? Pass it. Anybody else? You good? You good? Okay. You with me? Zissel.
Yes.
Zissel Chava. Okay, very good. Zissel. That's his phenomenon. You probably know that Chava is 19. And Yud Ke Vav Ke is 26. Well, if you write out Yud Ke Vav Ke with Aleph, so Yud Vav Dalet, that's 20. Hey Aleph is 6. Vav Aleph Vav is 13, and Hey Aleph is 6. You get 45. 45 minus 26 is 19. So behind Shem Havai is Chava. Or to say it in other words, Adam doesn't mean man. Adam means person, because Adam is male and female together. Adam is 45 also. So behind Adam is Chava. Adam is Havaya, Davish's name, plus Chava. They revealed in Yud Ke Vav Ke what's hidden is Chava, and that's considered higher. There's a lot of chassidus. Okay, ready, people?
Yeah.
Thank you. Now, we're in the middle of a sikha, which I hope to finish. I keep on saying I do it quick, and then I come back next week, and I'm still doing it quick. As you know, we're learning the Torah, the Chumash, and I'm loving every minute of it. I mean, I'm doing the whole story, and I'm learning sikhas that I've learned many times, and I'm just seeing them so differently because of these classes. What we undertook to do was learn the story of the Torah from the beginning through the lens of the Rebbe sikhas, based on the following constant, based on the following supposition, that the Torah is a history book. But it's not a history of the world. It's a history of the purpose of the world. Every story in the Torah speaks to not what Hashem created, but why He created. Accordingly, some parts of the story are not told at all. Many parts of the story are not told at all. Some of the parts of the story are told very, very, very quickly. And other parts of the story are told in so much detail and said more than once that you wonder how many times they got to tell the story. And of course, the answer is always the same. Since the Torah is the storybook of the purpose of the world, any aspect of the world which speaks directly to the purpose, the Torah stops and focuses. And the most central figure in the Chumash, the most central figure in the 5 books, is Moshe Rabbeinu. The whole Chamisha Chumshe Torah, including Bereshis, but Moshe Rabbeinu's name is never mentioned because he's born in Shmos. It's called Torah's Moshe. Because the purpose of the creation, the story of the purpose of the creation is linked to a personality, to a person, one person, Moshe Rabbeinu. And there are a lot of other people who contributed, but in the final analysis, it's the story of Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu is part of the narrative of why Hashem made the world more than anybody else, more than Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, more than other vision. So what we've done is we pick a topic and we learn the sichas on it. Then we go to tefillah. I sat this morning, by the way. And this morning I was doing siddur in anticipation of what we have when we finish with these sichas. These sichas are wow. This morning I prepared the next sicha. I'd already studied it twice before. Today I was able to organize my thoughts enough to make my underlines. But we choose a topic and learn all the sichas. The topic that we're learning is the day before the Torah was given. Erev Matan Torah. Friday, according to the Gemara, the 5th of Sivan, is our topic. What happened on that day? On that day, the Jewish nation was converted. We collectively became Jews. We went through a conversion process. As you know, conversion process has 4 ideas. The most important, as our Sikha explained, the essence of conversion is accepting all the mitzvahs, all 613, the hard ones and the easy ones, including the punishments. And then there are 3 rituals that support that submission, that acceptance, which is a bris milah, going to the mikveh, and bringing a korban. What's happening in our sikha? What's happening in our sikha is something very, very interesting. What I'm about to say, I'm not discussing, I'm just telling you, okay? Our entire narrative, the story of the Chumash as you and I are learning it, follows Rashi. And there are other opinions that spin you out like you've never seen, okay? Our entire analysis follows Rashi. And Rashi holds that the conversion of the Jewish people took place Friday. The next day they would get the Torah. So the Rebbe makes a very, very important and really almost painful observation. What is an observation? Of the 4 parts of Gedus, what's the most important? Accepting Torah mitzvahs. Because we taught in the Sikha that accepting Torah mitzvahs is not a ritual associated with the Gedus, it's the Gedus itself. You have to do 3 things to become a Jew. But those 3 things are the things that you do. What makes you a Jew? Committing to all 630 mitzvahs. But there's a very, very important catch. What's the important catch? You have to commit all 613. You can't commit the 612, you can't commit 611, you can't commit either all or none. And you have to accept them with all the severity, all the preciseness, which is associated with Har Sinai, including the Einshim, the punishments for not keeping them. So the Rebbe says, the day before the Torah was given, the Jews could not accept 630 mitzvahs. They didn't have them. They didn't have them. So the Rebbe therefore makes a very, very, like I said, a frustrating observation. Although we learn all the learns of conversion from that conversion event, but that conversion event was really not a complete conversion event. Why? They didn't have the mitzvahs yet. And they don't have the mitzvahs, they can't convert. In other words, if a person does a bris milah, he even does kriya, and he goes to the mikveh, and he brings korbanos, but he doesn't accept the Torah mitzvahs, he's not 3/4 Jew, he's 0 Jew. Why? Because those are just acts. Being a Jew is accepting mitzvahs. If you take away the accepting of mitzvahs, everything else becomes really not nearly as meaningful. So the Rebbe's point in our Sikha is 2 things. Point 1, the most important part of conversion is accepting mitzvahs. And point 2, when we converted, we couldn't accept the mitzvahs, we didn't have them. So although we learn the conversion process from this story, their conversion is different than our conversion. Because we went through the whole process of conversion, but we didn't become Jewish till the next day. What happened the next day? Hashem gave us instead of the 10 commandments. And when he gave us 10 commandments, he gave us all 630 mitzvahs. And when he gave us all 630 mitzvahs, we were able to commit to be Jewish. And that's the sikha, these 2 points. I'm repeating them again for the 3rd time. Point number 1, conversion is accepting 630 mitzvahs. Everything else is supporting them. And point number 2, accordingly, when we converted and accepted mitzvahs, we didn't really convert because we didn't have them yet. And you can add the mitzvahs so you know what they are. You with me? You with me? One more detail just for fun, in case it's not confusing enough. There's quantity and there's quality. The quantity is that there's 613 mitzvahs, we didn't have all 613, we had a handful. And then there's quality. And the Abish gave us the title of the mitzvahs that we even had from before became different. Because as you know from the other sikhs, and I was thinking this morning in the middle of my David, that when we learn Matan Teda, when we go to the next day, Shuas, the actual giving of the Teda, which is going to be, I don't know, next year, I'm assuming it's not going to happen this year, no way. We're going to learn about this idea of the Black Zeta, which develops 50 sikhs. Breaking the decree, thank you very much. The nullification of the decree, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. The nullification of the decree of what is high should be able to come low. What is low should be able to come high happens on Shabbat. So it's not only that when we committed on Friday to be Jews, we didn't have all the mitzvahs. Even the mitzvahs we only had them in a preliminary way. We had them in a premeditated way. So for two reasons, our conversion was inadequate, was insufficient. A, we didn't have all the mitzvahs. And B, we didn't have it at the same qualitative level as the Yidden would have it when they were the next day. So the punchline of the Sikha is, Friday we were converted, and Shabbos we did it again. Friday we did all the mitzvahs. The bris we did in the Mitzrayim, so we could become Pesach. The mikveh and the korban we did that day. We all said Nasa and Nishma, we committed to keep mitzvahs. The next Hashem gave us the Torah, and then we were able to commit again. That's when the conversion was complete, when Hashem gave us the Torah. Questions or comments? Go ahead, Rivka. I didn't say her first because I remember her name. Your name is Basia. I didn't forget that. Go ahead.
So we're saying that on Shabbat, all of the mitzvot were given.
Correct.
But how are they all given to me? Like, weren't they given, like, they all, that part of the part that was
They're only getting 10 commandments. A sentence of David is.
right.
They're only given 10. It's a very, very good question. It's a complicated answer. First of all, the qualitative level of this is given at a higher level of holiness. Second of all, let's just say that your question is good enough for the Rabbi to concede you've been stumped. Third of all, Rashi brings in Mashas Mishpat, which is next week's Kitas, that the Tzaddik Gaon, one of the earliest rabbis, writes that if you look at the 10 Commandments carefully, you'll see all 650.
They were only, I understood that they were also given what had been written of the Torah, and that's like, when they were in the desert, like Moshe, like, if someone wanted Moshe to like, start, like, having them like read a portion, maybe started from them,
But really, I do not know what your question is.
My question is, if they're given the Torah, like, if they're given the Torah, as in like,
The entire
books
Torah.
of, yeah. Or they were given just as up to what they had already did. But the mitzvot weren't in that yet. Let me do things.
That was given on Friday. On Shabbat, they got the whole thing. What you just said is our next season.
When you say that, like,
All 650 commandments.
in what, in writing, and like, how?
I'm not sure, but they were given on 650. Sorry? Perhaps. What did you want to say?
I wanted to ask about, do you have any timeline about the, what was the first mitzvah after, Matan Torah, what, you didn't give right away? Do you have?
Well, the Rebbe says, see, there's two questions. The first question is which mitzvahs were they given right away, and then which mitzvahs did they perform right away? Those are two different questions. One of the biggest questions that brought in a lot of sputter was, did they keep that first Shabbos? Because the beginning of that Shabbos they couldn't keep because they became Jews in the middle of Shabbos. So was there a point in finishing that Shabbos or not? And there's implication that the first Shabbos was actually the next week. Because that Shabbos was sort of half. Another idea which we know is that Rashi says on Chodesh, the first mitzvah they were given was to keep a calendar. In Parshas Boyach, and there's a whole reason why it's the first mitzvah. Additionally, you have to say, even though I'm changing the subject on you and I'm sort of going away from what you're asking me, that the first mitzvah you kept as a nation was cut and Pesach on this meal. They did it in science. And finally, the answer to your question, of course, is Yanni's not you. After I gave you 4 answers, I don't know. It's very hard to know. And the problem with knowing it is that there's a lot of opinions. I don't know if you understand what I'm doing. I'm teaching you sikhs. And some of the sikhs that I'm teaching are bringing different opinions. But I'm skipping. I'm doing only Rashi. I'm doing one opinion. It's complicated enough. We're only following the approach that they gave us with Edemant, the conversion was the day before, which makes the conversion incomplete. In the next sikha we're going to learn, it's never going to make that point further. The next sikha is going to continue being about the gate of Matan Torah, according to Rashi, as opposed to other Rishonim who say it happened after Matan Torah. And the Rebbe is going to point out the limitations in that conversion, more limitations, besides Momi later. So, page 31 people. First column, second paragraph, okay? Now, girls, I got up this morning, and the last thing I did before I left my home was open up my computer and look at where I finished our learning last Wednesday. I do it every week. Where I stopped, I know where to start. The truth is, we've really talked about the whole sikha. Now we're just going to read it. So let's see if I can actually keep my word and not take that much time on this, so we can actually start another sikha. Second paragraph, page 10, and it goes, everybody knows the rule. You read the underlined and you're good. Because man shall so long as the entirety of it was not given at Sinai, from Hashem, even though we know from the Chazal, from the Gemara, and so on, that other Medisha knew the whole Torah, and Noach knew the whole Torah, a bunch of people knew the whole Torah, and the others actually practiced the whole Torah. But the Torah that they learned, the Torah that they practiced, was not given by God, it was taken by man. It's a different Torah. The Torah we have to keep, and the Torah God gives. It's impossible for it to be a complete Kabbalah, Hebrew, acceptance of a mitzvah. The mitzvah which Hashem was going to give us when we receive the Torah have to be on the level of Hashem giving. And there's two things here. Number one, we need all 613, not less. And number two, we need on the level of Hashem giving it, and not on the level we take. This is quantity and quality. Since even though we had some mitzvah before, maybe we had more than some, but a number is not on the same level of mitzvah. Which would happen when Hashem would give them to us at Sinai. Because when Hashem gave us the mitzvahs, He changed the rules, and He made it possible for us to elevate the world. Right? I'm sure you know the language. And before Matan Torah, when the person served Hashem, it was only the person called Gavra. The person is yet Hashem, but you can't connect the physical world to Hashem. When the Abish gave us the Torah, he added the idea of chefza. You use a physical thing from this world. You eat a piece of cake, or you drink a cup of coffee, and you make a bracha b'nim in mezenis. You make a bracha shakal nibadvarim, and you eat it with the kavanah that you have koyach. The serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you just made that food holy. That idea didn't happen when Hashem gave us the Torah. So even if we would say we had all the mitzvahs, but Hashem didn't give them to us, we took them. So this is the quality. Okay, moving on, it's understood. You cannot compare at all. The strictness, the preciseness of the mitzvah. Shekimu or Avis may Atzma, that Avis kept on their own. L'chomer asam mitzvahs, to the strictness of the mitzvahs, la'acharesh, and it's tabu aleihem, once the Jewish people were commanded to keep. The out there that says similarly, a day meklal, you cannot compare it all. Chomer atzivuyim, the severity of the commandment. Should establish Yisrael al Yemeshel lifnei Matan Torah, that the Jewish people commanded to Moshe Rabbeinu before the Torah was given. L'chemer atzivuyim la'acharei Matan Torah, the severity of the commandment which were given to us after the Torah was given, because Sha'al Shom was Haseres Adibris mipi hagavura, because at that point, per the Ten Commandments from the Eibush. There's two things: there's mitzvahs and there's tzivuyim. There's the commandments, and then Hashem is commanding us, and I'm not sure they do. Second column, page 31, therefore, call Indian shall Kabbalah submits the whole idea that on Friday we were converted, and we established quite powerfully that the most important part of that conversion was not the bris milah, it was not the mikveh, it was not the korban, it was the acceptance of mitzvahs. But our acceptance of mitzvahs on that day was inadequate. It wasn't enough. Why? Number one, we didn't have all the mitzvahs. Number two, we didn't have the mitzvahs and the level of the severity that they would take on when the Eibush gives them. So therefore, we read inside, Kol inyan shel Kabbalah mitzvah. The whole phenomenon of us accepting the mitzvah. Kedem shmiyas aseres hadibrit mipi hagavura. Before we heard the 10 commandments of the Eibush, Ein lahachshiva, you cannot make it the same. You cannot consider it the same level. To acceptance of the mitzvahs when the Eibush gave us the Torah. Because the koid and before, take to the Torah mitzvah, that there was the power of the Torah, which we would get after the Torah. Because those Hashem gave. In the world, before Hashem brought into the world the 613 commandments, as He gave it was the Har Sinai, it's not possible. Shetia al zeh, that we Jewish people should have in relationship to the mitzvah that we were given. Kabbalah means it's a true acceptance, because you cannot accept mitzvahs that don't exist yet. And the Rebbe uses a very halachic expression. It's something that does not exist yet. We have no idea the nature of these commandments, and therefore there was no way we could commit to them until the Eibush gave us the Torah. So we're pointing out a flaw in the Gatus. We're defining what the Gatus is, and then we're pointing out the flaw in the Gatus. The Gatus is that we accept mitzvahs. The flaw in the Gatus is that the true acceptance of mitzvahs is only when you accept them all. And when you accept them on the level of Hashem giving you. Comment or question? Talk.
How could they even accept it? It's like it wasn't given, so it wasn't theirs to accept. Like when you said it was Hashem didn't give it for a man, just taking it. So
It's a wonderful question. And of course, the answer is they were given many mitzvahs already. And the mitzvah they were given was meant to segue into the mitzvah they would be given. If you remember last week's class, one of the points that I sort of talked about emphatically was the Lashon HaRambam, the expression where he talks about the Shavah mitzvahs in here. He starts for Adam Nitztav Al Shisha mitzvah. Adam Rish was given 6 commandments. Hoysef Noach was given the 7th commandment of Evim and Achai. Then Avraham Avinu was given the Smil and Shacharis. Yitzchak was given Meiser and Filas Mincha. Yankov was given the Noshah and Filas Arvis. And then when Yidden went to Mitzrayim, they got more mitzvahs to Amram. And then the Rambam finishes at Shabbat Moshe. So Moshe Rabbeinu came. The Hushlam HaTorah Yada, the Torah was made complete to Moshe Rabbeinu. So the Rambam is presenting us with a version of Yiddishkeit that said that we had the mitzvahs from before, and Moshe simply completing the number. Our Sikh is making the opposite argument. Our Sikh is saying, number one, we didn't have a law. Number two, even the ones we had, we didn't have because it was on a different level. So you have to put together what the Rambam is saying with what the Sikh is saying. In other words, you have to put together what you just said with what I'm saying. There was validity to their acceptance of this, just wasn't completely.
But then, based on like the Rambam, when they already accepted these mitzvahs, could they have been since Adam and Noah, like, would have already been doing them? Like, they're-
Didn't. The Avis did all the mitzvahs, Adam and I
they-
did,
other than-
but they're doing the mitzvahs at a level of Gabra, not at a level of Chatzah. Even the Avis, who did all 650 mitzvahs, they could only do the mitzvah from the angle of the person, not from the world. You couldn't elevate the physical world. So even if you're going to say they had all the mitzvahs, no exceptions, but it was, again, yeshivish expression on a level of Gavra, that the person could connect to Hashem through the mitzvahs, but not on a level of Chesed, they couldn't elevate the physical world. So any way you want to approach it, there was something deficient about their acceptance of mitzvahs the day before the Torah. Fair enough?
Yeah, thank you.
We're good? But page 32. So the Chemistad and Loimer is there reasonable to say, to assert. That although the entire Pasha of Geder, as Rashi holds, which took place on the 5th of Sivan, which the day Hashem gave it is so important in our history that it made us all Jews. At the same time, it makes sense to say that the true concept of accepting the mitzvah. He saw the bliss which brought people into the covenant. Hoya didn't happen until Eis Shmiyas Haseres Adibrit, until we heard the 10 Commandments. Sha'az Ha'idiyah HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that the Eibush informed the Jewish people of the most important one, Yichud Hashem, the unity of God. This is the prohibition against believing in more than one God. In other words, Anechi, I am your God, which is the positive, and Lahiyalacha, which is the negative of the God. And he added in Oichum the punishment of not having one God and worshiping other gods. Till kind of a good takes for a minute. It's the Shabbos and the prohibitions against Shabbos. The aid me'achamon is a more strict mitzvah, chamber and the shemitah, which will punish with death. The gam me'akal is also the light of mitzvah. So listen, before the Jews got the Torah, they said Nasa v'nishma. When the Abisha gave the Torah, it doesn't say they said Nasa v'nishma, but they were right there to accept the Torah. The Rebbe said, when we got the Torah, we had done it. Whether it's written in the Chumash or not. Because the Nasa v'nishma that happened the day before was not a complete Nasa v'nishma, because first of all, we didn't have all the mitzvahs, and second of all, we didn't have the mitzvahs on a level we could elevate them.
But didn't we,
On Friday,
but we said it not knowing what we were saying yesterday.
correct.
So why do we need to say it again?
So whether you have to say it, the verbal confirmation. I was sitting on an airplane, I had what do they call it, an emergency moon row, because I said I paid for extra leg room because of my short legs. So you have that verbal confirmation. The guy comes by and he asks each one, are you ready, willing, and able to assist in case of emergency? Let's open the doors. And if you say or not, he says, no, I need verbal confirmation. The Nasa v'nishma was a verbal confirmation. Was there a verbal confirmation the next day? The Torah doesn't say so. But there's a philosophical confirmation. The Jews realized that what they did yesterday, because they didn't know what it was, they could do it again. So the gators of the Jewish people, the ritual take place on Friday, but the culmination of the conversion takes place on Shabbat. That's the point of the season. Because until you got them all, until you know what they are, until you know how serious they are, you can't convert. That's the message of the Sikha. And I'm going to tell you of now that in the next Sikha, the Rebbe is going to continue this whole line of reasoning about the difference between the way we did the mitzvah before Matan Torah and after Matan Torah. But in the next Sikha Kinderlach, at the very end, the Rebbe is going to make an interesting argument that it's actually beneficial for us to have said Nasa v'nish, we're going to take a look at it. Rebbe's going to argue in the next Sikha that when we converted from Matan Torah, it was not such a good conversion. Something was wrong with the conversion. Because there wasn't enough God in it. Because the God is put into the conversion when he gave us the 10 Commandments, which happened on Shabbat. But that was actually going to argue that the fact that there wasn't so much God in the mitzvahs that we accepted before the day was given, it means there was more man, and that's going to be advantageous. In the next sikha, the Rebbe is going to again say what's wrong with their conversion. He's going to say, you see, but what's wrong with that conversion actually makes it right in a different way. Because true, Hashem wasn't involved, but there was something deficient about the conversion, but that means we are more involved, and that's also good.
Wait, God wasn't involved in the first, when they did the very Friday?
He wasn't involved in the highest level, correct? Yeah, he was the Tedium. But that meant we were more involved. And they're ever going to argue that there's an advantage in it. And this sikh, he's pointing out the limitation. And the next sikh is going to point out the advantage. Okay?
Mhm.
Let's read that paragraph again. The first paragraph on page 32. Reasonable to say. The idea that we accepted mitzvahs. And remember, parenthesis, the acceptance of mitzvahs is conversion, right? The whole beginning of the sikha says what? The bris milah is a ritual. The korban is a ritual. The mikvah is a ritual. But you become a Jew not from ritual, you become a Jew from the commitment, from accepting Torah mitzvahs, right? So the most important thing is accepting mitzvahs. They accepted mitzvahs on Friday, which was deficient, because they didn't have them all because of echad and quantity and equality. When did they get them? All by the status of dibris. So therefore, when they got the 10 Commandments, whether they said Nasav and Ashma, or they thought Nasav and Ishma, that's when they became Jews. Look at the language. She'ikir, Inyan, Kabbalah, some mitzvahs, the primary event of us accepting the mitzvahs, parenthesis. Shayada Nichnas Yisrael of this which brought us into the covenant. You have Ace, Shemiah, Ateres, Akzibit, you heard the 10 Commandments. So all that at that point, the HaKadosh Baruch Hu got informed us of Yichud Hashem, the oneness of God. Yisrael Dezarim, the act of not believing in more than one, which is the Noichi, the positive element of I am your God. The Lagir, the negative one, there's no other God. In ancient, along with the punishment for worshiping idols, which is killed kind of God is vengeance. And at that point, they became complete Jews. And the same is also true with Issa Shabbos. They were given Shabbos in Mara, but they didn't know what Shabbos was. They were given it again in that status and given it. The Eid Me'achamor says other strict things. Shem Ein Shem Mitzvah Mavis, which a person is punishable by death for transgressing it. The Gami Akav was the Mitzvah Mitzvah. So the Rebbe is saying we were converted on Shabbos. But the most important part of the conversion was, let's say that again, we were converted on Friday. But the most important part of the Friday conversion was missing its wholeness. We got the Torah, we converted again. So in the final analysis, somebody asks you, when did the Jewish people become Jewish? So you say, I think on Friday. And then, wait, no, Friday it was okay, but it wasn't the real deal. It was on Shabbos. So then the guy will say, yeah, but I thought they were converted on Friday. You're going to answer they were converted on Friday. But they were converted on Friday only the Yiddishkeit that they knew. The total Yiddishkeit they didn't have, and then for that they converted again on Shabbos. We're good? And the Rebbe continues, Rabbi there, Mituret says the sheet is cushion of taste. Everybody knows the question. The Ma'ameh Chazal in the Gemara that Kof Aleim Harik Yigis that Hashem dangled Mount Sinai over the Jewish people's head by Mount Torah and said, if you accept the Torah, it's good, right? I'm going to lower the mountain on top of you and you're going to become pressed people, you're going to be crushed. And the Jews said, accepted the Torah. So they said, I don't understand. The Jews all come and they keep mitzvahs on Friday. If on Friday they agree to keep mitzvahs, why on Shabbos is Hashem accepting it? If we accept it, keep all the mitzvahs on Friday, why are they being threatened on Shabbos? I'm leaving back in a minute. I must get coffee because I'm literally talking in my sleep. And I don't like to sleep. Minute.
Hear something wholesome. So my brother-in-law got me get the thing to order at my hotel, and he did one of my nephews $1. So I was like, oh, he gave you $1 for a tzedakah. And he kept just saying big taxi, the big taxi. And finally my brother-in-law came into the room and he was like, it was Rabbi Paltiel. And I goes, no, big taxi. That's so good. And so now every time I see Rabbi Paltiel, I'm like, my nephew thinks your name is Big Taxi. You were with his memory of halacha class last year, right? Do you remember what hechsher we used to look for on tuna and like sardines? I remember her talking about it, but I don't have in my notes what hechsher we used. Like I know it's, you can't just buy an OU for tuna. Like it has to be a more strict hechsher because there are like a lot they do with tuna.
To be honest,
You're lucky, you probably can make a bracha on it.
But will you
How can you
anyway?
do without a bracha? Can you wait? See. I'll get back. Friday, the Jews are converted, they say Nasav and Ishma, right? The next day they get the Torah and Hashem threatens to kill them if they don't accept it. The Tosfos asks the question, I don't understand. Yesterday they committed, what are you threatening them today? Yesterday they all said Nasav and Ishma, what are you threatening them about? It's not a question, an obvious question. So the answer is because what they committed to yesterday and what will be given today are not the same thing. Yesterday they committed to some of the mitzvahs. And they committed to those mitzvahs on what's called in Hasidus on a level of Gavra, where a person does mitzvahs, where he's elevating himself and not elevating the world. Now they're given all the mitzvahs, with the punishments for the mitzvahs, with the added dimension of being elevate the world. So because they're being given the same mitzvahs, but in a very, very different way, there is reason to say, okay, are you accepting the new mitzvahs? The ones you accepted yesterday, but you have to accept them on a more severe level. Along with their punishment and along with the ability to elevate the world. Let's read it inside. Second paragraph, page 32 of the Pshitas, it answers very simply, Kushas Atesis, the question that Tesis asks in Masech Shabbat. It says in the Gemara, Rabbi Mechazal, quote, Kof Aleim es Hahor, Shigigis, God Almighty dangled Har Sinai over the head like a press. That's how it's described in Medrash. Hashem picked up, today is Wednesday, right? Today's Chitas at the beginning of the story. It's great Hashkocha. We're learning a Sikha by the kids. So on Shabbos, Hashem picked up Har Sinai and he dangled it over their heads. In other words, it became very, very shady and dark. And the mountain was going to go back and forth like this here. He's, okay, are you in? Oh, I'm just going to lower it down. He looked up and okay, whatever you say. Just put the mountain down. Just put it down. We're in.
But not on top of us.
But not on top of it. So the shaila is, look at the words that are underlined. The day before they said Nasal Nishma. Why are you threatening him now? Said the Rabbi, now what this Sikha told us explains why Yeshtan Tzipashim was Aniras, Nasal Nishma, when they said we will do it, we will hear the day before. And by the way, in the next Sikha, which is going to be a continuation of this theme, that before the Torah was given, even when we said Nasav and Ishma, it wasn't the same thing as afterwards. It doesn't have the full idea of accepting a mitzvah, which every convert does nowadays. Why? Because Kabbalah mitzvahs the Yisrael, the full acceptance of mitzvahs by the Jewish people is b'shas matan Torah. B'shas aseres hadibut, when they gave it the Torah on Shabbos, 10 Commandments, and therefore, it became necessary, became advantageous, but even the Kaf Aleim Hagagigis to dangle the mountain over their head and threaten to kill them all if they wouldn't accept it. And of course, I'm sure you know the Hasidus, right? You know the Hasidus? Know the Hasidus or not? Does anybody know the Hasidus? What does it mean Hashem dangled the mountain over their head? He threatened to kill them. And the story of Pashtus is really, really strange. The Jews are so desperate to get the Torah, they're really counting the days when they left Egypt to Matan Torah, right? They're really excited. And they want to see God directly. And on the last minute, he's threatening them. So, of course, the answer is he's threatening them because they're getting Torah and Hamadegah. We know Chassidus explains that threat. Chassidus explains that threat that he took away their free will. And then Pshuta Shemer he took away their free will by threatening to kill them. And Hasidus took away their free will by completely revealing themselves. When you see God, you don't really got a choice. Hasidus explains the dangle in the mountain over the head when they saw such a great revelation of Hashem. When you see God face to face, you don't exactly have a choice. You understand? That's how Hasidus explains the significance of dangling the mountain over the head. What about the fact that yesterday they already agreed and now they're agreeing to something higher? Okay, your question or comment?
My question. We're speaking only about Sweden, but as we know, that Belgium also took a part in the conversion. And
When did that happen? What does it mean? Meet them took a part.
part of the Muslims came with the.
They ate it out.
Yeah.
They were Jews. Of course, they were not Muslim. The minute you convert, you're a Jew. The halacha is Yiddish and is Gaya, the Kartaj, and Eladami. A convert that goes through a conversion is like a newborn baby.
Yeah, but before conversion, before they received Torah.
But they also said Nasa Ishma. They also said Nasa Ishma. All the people said Nasa Ishma, including the Yehuda. Everybody said Nasa Ishma. And they said, here's the problem right there with the Mitzvah. Once it's being Jewish like the mafia. What do Judaism and the mafia have in common? Anybody know? Come on, you got it.
No, I know. If you get, if you join, you hand it out.
That's all.
Hmm.
There's a covenant. You don't have to make it. But there's only one way out of the mafia. And it's not pleasant. You join, you can't leave, finish.
Oh,
That's what you, the covenant. Once you're in, you're not, now Hashem is not gonna kill you. But you and your children and your grandchildren, save Kala Davis, who could be Rahman al so assimilated. You can't get out of it. The covenant is forever. That's the deal. Okay? I'm stopping for 5 minutes, but I'm starting in 5 minutes, whether you're back or not, okay? That's a threat. Let me see if I can keep it. Okay. 10 to 12 people, 10 to 12. It's so funny. I prepare and it always takes longer. I thought to take a few minutes. I spent so much time on this sikha. I learned it 5 times probably. Because it's so hard.
Will you ever do a class where you just tell stories?
I've tons of those online.
Okay,
So go listen.
I've listened to some of them. That's why I want to hear them in class more.
What kinds of stories?
I've only listened to your stories of the band.
Yeah, they're good.
Yeah,
But everything has a time and place, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If I'm a majesty with I need to tell stories, I tell stories. I love telling stories. I love learning Hasidus more, actually.
really?
Absolutely. Are you kidding? In Beis Shift, I threatened to leave. Because all I do is tell stories. So they're giving me sichas to learn.
How long have you worked in this house?
Not as long as I'm working here, but long enough. Maybe 15 years.
Oh,
Working here 35 years.
oh my goodness.
Yes, I'm married. My first job was Machocha.
What did you think when you started?
I was too stupid to appreciate how awesome it was.
What is that?
School was so big, there was so many girls, so much more than now.
How many?
My class probably did, it looked like it was full, every seat was taken. Every day, there were 2 levels. And there was a Hebrew track. A very high percentage of my early students were Russians.
Oh,
Then, the Soviet Union had not even fully, I started in 1990. The Soviet Union didn't disintegrate till December 31st, 1991. The first couple of years, whether you came from the Russia or the Ukraine or Moldavia, it was all the same, it was Russian. And there was shlichus already in Russia, and a lot of girls wanted to learn. I mean, some of those girls are shluchas today. Some of my early students are shluchas today.
do they reach out to you ever?
Some do. It's so many years. There's a few students that I have deep relationships with? Not a lot. I bump into people all the time who say, Rabbi, I was in your class. A lot
And
of
do you
it-
ask them what their name is?
Yes, of course. How many children they have, and if they're married, and if they're happy, and if they're healthy. So many times break my heart. One of the girls told me, more than one of them, you were the only one who was honest with us about marriage. Marriage is hard work. I think two people that are willing to
And
do.
with them.
Two people who want to work. I said once, said more than once. Being married is spending your life in front of a mirror in all six sides. But the mirror's full of cracks.
Uh-huh.
So you see every flaw, every crack. Staying single is a way of avoiding yourself. It's not just a way of avoiding other people, but avoiding yourself. Being married forces you to grow up or to fail. I tell you, it's a very bad idea. Right? Queen Elizabeth said, failure is not an option.
So then how do you define failing at marriage? Just not trying?
Well, the end of failure marriage is the marriage doesn't work, it falls apart, children so. The process of failing at marriage is not putting in the work, not being realistic, and not adapting. When you have one idea, then you get married, life presents you with a different reality, you have to be able to say, okay, I was planning to do this, the English said this, but I gotta change to make it work. I'm not pointing at anybody. That's what it is. That's the trick. The trick is to be able to change yourself to see the reality. If you can do that, you can make it work. But you have to have a partner. Your husband's a baby, then you have a problem.
Would you like water?
I got my poison there. And not just infection.
No water?
No, I'm good. Okay, we're starting in 1 minute. Okay, bring me a little water. Okay, so if you're going down, bring me water.
Yeah.
Go. Thank you. So the cock will get in the water. A lot of times I prepare this coffee. I don't have to drink it. If it's here, I'm already more away. Okay, let's go. Let's finish. Let's finish. Let's finish. The bottom of page 32. There's a part of me that feels that a little bit I misled you. I misled you because I misled myself. I misled myself because I had this idea that I liked so much that I was stuck in it. And I didn't want to make an adaptation. Which is, I love this concept that every person that goes through conversion is doing exactly the same thing as all the Jewish people did when they went through conversion. In other words, you don't go through conversion if you're not Jewish. You go through conversion if you are a Jew, because you're not a Jew without conversion. Rabbi, did all the mitzvahs, the ganze mitzvah. If they had been by Yetzias Mitzrayim, they would have to be converted. Conversion means bris milah, means carbonate, means mikvah, means nothing an issue. Why? Because you become a Jew, whether your ancestors are Hebrews or they're no matter what. To be part of Hashem's nation, you have to be converted. And I drove home the point, based on Rashi's opinion, that the conversion took place the day before. Because I just love that idea that someone's going to give us a Torah, and before he gave us the Torah, I hate to use the word ceremoniously, but that's the right word, ceremoniously became Jewish to be able to practice Torah and mitzvahs. Well, here we have a sikha, and this is a segue to the next sikha, where this is going to be brought out even more, that says, yeah, we prepared to get the Torah, we did the whole thing, we went through the conversion, but nothing really happens until God speaks. We did what we could. As much as we could convert ourselves, we converted ourselves. You don't become a Jew until God gives you the Torah.
Then why are you born Jewish?
Because our parents converted.
But I didn't.
What I tell you about the mosque,
I know, but I didn't join it.
it's a matrilineal line, lady. I'm a guy. Think about that responsibility. Every offspring of yours till the end of time is automatically a Jew. That's the deal.
But like Abraham was in our standard Jewish.
No, it's not true. That's the point. He wasn't.
But-
Not only was Abraham not in our standard Jewish, when we converted on Friday, we were not Jewish in our standard. When we did the whole ceremony.
You are this, but what you when you talking like communicating with Hashem before. So
And he wasn't a Jew like we are. But all of that fancy stuff, all that holy stuff, what a Jew is, as we know it now, even Abraham wasn't. That's the whole point of this season. He may have kept all the mitzvahs, however he knew him. But you're not a Jew until you keep the mitzvahs because God gave them. God didn't give them to Abraham. Abraham took them. And he didn't give them till Shabbos, the 6th of Sivan. So what the Rebbe is actually doing is he's spinning the conversion in the opposite direction. I presented it to you the way I like to present it. That we all became Jewish through conversion on Friday, so we can get the Torah on Shabbos. And they were saying, how do they say it in Yiddish? How do you say it in Yiddish? You know how to say it in Yiddish? You know how to say it in Yiddish, you just don't realize how to say it in Yiddish. In Yiddish, you would say, quote, it's all fine and good, which is an entirely Yiddish expression translated in English. But it wasn't conversion, God gave it. I think they don't have to push out. So we did everything we could. We converted, we submitted, we became the Jewish as we could become through our own efforts on Friday. But until Hashem speaks, He gives us the Torah, it didn't complete. And as I said to you a few minutes ago, the Sikha we're going to be learning after this one, which is very, very dynamic. The Sikha is very, very intricate. And when I prepared the class, what I did was, I took out the dynamism, I took out the intricacy, and I left it just with the narrative of Rashi. I made it simple. But the next Sikha is going to continue this point. That no matter how converted we were before, we really were not converted until God spoke. And you'll see it in the next Sikha, Mitzvah Hashem, over the next couple of weeks. Okay? Let's read the end. Last two paragraphs, page 32 at the bottom. So I didn't lie to you, you understand? But I celebrated a certain point of view that the Rebbe is actually going against. I'm not wrong in what I told you. But the Rebbe sees it from another angle. He sees it from a different angle. This explains. Mashamatan Torah. God coming down and giving us the Torah. Is God coming down on a mountain speaking to the Jewish people? What did we do? Huh? We woke up in the morning, we washed Negavasa, we rubbed our eyes, we said maybe, and we showed up. What happened next? God spoke, and our neshamas flew away. We didn't do a lot. We were just present. God did everything. And it says in Chazal, we became converts when God spoke to us and the neshamas flooded away. As you pointed out, the Nasa Vanish, we said the day before. We didn't do very much on that day. And yet on that day we became Jewish. The true conversion happens when God speaks and we keep quiet. Because in Haggadah, it's the true concept of what we call in our culture, Ger Tzedek, a righteous convert. It's Shagir Nasa Matias Chadosha, the convert becomes the whole entity. And as the halacha says, Kikoton Shanela Domi, like a baby that's reborn. So the Rebbe asks the question that you just asked me. First of all, when the Exodus happened some 50 days before, the Pasuk said, the Jewish people were assimilated amongst the Egyptians. Hashem took a nation out of a nation. He separated the Jews from the Egyptians, gave them their own identity, that they're now called Jews, they're now called Hebrew. So what happened at Har Sinai if we were already Jewish before? The question is even stronger. There are some rabbis who hold, in the footnote 73, you can see sources. And the problem with the sources that Emma quotes is to look up those sources, and those sources will tell you to look up other sources. That hold, that are patriarchs of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, already went out of the status of being the sons of Noah. Din Yisrael, that had the halach of being Jewish. And therefore the question becomes, it's very difficult to say, when Hashem gave us the Torah, gave us, the Jewish nation was converted if we were Jewish from before. Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov were Jewish, and they kept all the mitzvahs. And when we left Egypt, we became a distinct nation, and we're identified as Jews. And we're given more mitzvahs. So what do we mean when we say that we didn't become Jewish or Hashem came down the mountain and spoke to us? What's the answer? Until God gives, it's not the whole thing. Without being Amavur, the answer is this. It's true. They've all reattached to God before. Hare, the translation of Hare in English means emphasis. The form of revelation of Hashem, the whole Yisrael to the Jewish people, the Ace Matan, at the moment of Matan, Paul Behem affected the Jewish people as Chachas Gemara, a renewal, became a new being. Achinatu Mathias Chadosh Amam became a new entity. And this new entity is the Kotan Janel Dema, like a baby was just born. And before, we were not new. And because before we were not new, the true occasion when Jews are converted and become Jewish was on the day we got the Torah, not the day. What happened on that day? God revealed himself.
On the day we got before.
On the day we got the Torah. Chassidus talks about this a lot, even in Tanya chapter 46, 47. But the Alter Rebbe explains that the real significance of Hashem giving us the Torah was not that he gave us the rules, but that he gave us himself. And when Hashem gave us himself, we became himself people, and we people. That's the conversion. To become new and a Chiddush. In Jewish law, there is a category which is called kichenes, earthenware vessel. Have you heard about earthenware vessels? What's an earthenware vessel? A vessel made from pottery, right? Some people say that China, the pirates, maybe even glass, is considered earthen. Earthenware vessels have a lot of very, very interesting laws. They're very unique. Number one, if an earthenware vessel becomes clay, you can't make it clay. No way. If I have a metal pot that becomes clay, I clean it, spotless, I wait 24 hours, and then I cash it, it's kosher. If I have a pot made of wood, depending on the kind of pot, I clean it, I wait 24 hours, and I make it kosher. And most pots are that way. An earthenware vessel, like a styrofoam, not a mug, what are those mugs called?
Pottery.
A pottery. If you made it fake, there's no way to catch it, you have to break it. You with me? Another example is that I said, when it becomes tummy, when it becomes ritually impure, it never can become dry. It doesn't help to put it in the mikveh. If a metal vessel becomes tummy, you catch it, you type it the mikveh, it's tummy. But an earthenware vessel, pottery, you can't make it. Tahir, it becomes tummy, it's tummy forever, finished, and you have to break it. You listening? There's an exception. In both of them. What the exception is? If we can make the pottery into a new kid, make it into a new vessel. Now, I got this piece of pottery, it exists. How do you make it new? It already exists. You know what the answer is? How do you make pottery in the first place?
You break it, you convert it back into its original.
No, without that. You leave it the same and yet it's new.
Rebuild it.
How do you make pottery in the first place? You take clay, you mold it, you wait for it to dry, and then you put it into an oven, which is called a kiln, K-I-L-N, which heats up the pottery to 1200 degrees, very, very, very. That makes it very tough. When you take it out of that pot, you give it a zetz, and it becomes a queen. You listening to me? If you could put that pot, the same pottery back into that oven, when you take it out, it's not been made kosher. The tape hasn't gone out of it, the tum hasn't gone out of it, it's new. The new cake, it's a new thing. What was before and what is now, it's new. Now, this is not a physiological thing, this is a spiritual, this is halachic. Halacha says, if you put it back in the original oven and it's not going to fall to pieces because of the heat, when you pull that pottery out of the oven, it's not that you've made it kosher, it's not that you've made it toy, it's a new, that pot's gone, it's a new one. It's called newness. This is not physiological newness, it's philosophical newness. Can you relate to that idea? Okay. Now, let me give you another example. There's such a thing called a man. And there's such a thing called a woman. There's such a thing called a couple. This is not only a physical thing, it's a halachic, it's a spiritual, okay? You must know how Torah thinks. How does Torah think? Torah thinks that when God made man and woman, he made them in one body. The operation that you read about in Genesis, this, to create Chava from Adam, is not what you think. That Hashem took a rib or Hashem took a tail from Adam and made Chava. Adam, according to Rashi, Adam and Chava were created back to back, like Siamese twins attached at the spine. Adam was bigger and stronger, and he schlepped Chava around like a backpack. It even says that somebody showed it that they could have proved they could have children like that. Hashem separate Adam from Chava, she becomes her own person. Adam has to treat her with respect, and she can earn respect for Adam. That if he'll be a mensch, she'll be Ezer, and if he'll be a pig, she'll be connected. Now it was easier before. If Adam is schlepping around Chava like a backpack, Chava has no free will, and Adam can do whatever he wants. But then he's not a married man, then he's a nothing. Why? Because he doesn't have the challenges that marriage brings. Adam and Chava have to be two people. their own free will. And in that framework, Adam and Chava can have real growing up, real maturation, real marriage. You listening to me? So when a man and a woman get married, what they're really doing is going back to how Hashem made Adam and Chava in the first place. But to use Kabbalah language, not in a way of Ocha, but Ocha, that's what it's called in Kabbalah, where they're back to back, upon him, face to face. They can look at each other. So a Torah, there's a man, there's a woman, and there's a couple. The last time I checked, a couple is a man and a woman, right? No. Man is a man, a woman is a woman, and a couple is a couple. What changed? There is something new here. You know how new it is? It's as new as taking a piece of pottery, which is teif and tameh, and putting it in the 12 and putting it back into the kiln. When you take it out, you didn't make it kosher, you didn't make it tired. It's a new keli. A boy is a boy, a girl is a girl, a married couple is a new mitzvah. And the fact of life is that if you take marriage seriously, it's not just a philosophical thing, it's an actual thing. You cannot compare a single man and a single woman to a married couple. They're on a different level. The challenges that they face and the opportunities for growth and for peace and happiness is completely different. So the concept of having something before, having the exact same thing after, and it's totally new, totally new. I don't mean it's physically new, it's philosophically. Okay? I'm going to give you one more example. You have 9 men in a room. There are 9 men. One guy walks in, boom, they're a minion. A minion is not 10 men. It's a new entity called a minion. You understand what I'm saying? The point I'm trying to make is that in halacha and in Torah, there's many examples for this. There's a concept of being new. New means not old. Even though, on a very simple level, there's nothing new here. There's simply the old is being adapted somehow. But in Jewish law, they become a brand new entity. And the one in before there was something else, and the woman in after there's something new, and it's as if like it was never here before. That's what the Rebbe is on. The Jews, they always kept the mitzvahs, they were Jewish. The Yidden came out of Egypt. When they came out of Egypt, a nation emerged from a nation. Now, I would like to add that one of the explanations for Golus Mitzrayim is this oven. Golus Mitzrayim was a kiln, called a barzel. It was an oven that baked the Jewish people at an incredibly high temperature. And when they emerged from that oven, they were new mitzvahs. You listening to me? Mm-hmm. But the Rebbe is arguing something different. He went into Egypt, came out of Egypt. So what was before was gone, but we're not yet new. We did not become a new nation until God came down on the mountain and spoke to us. You know why? Because when God came down on the mountain and spoke to us, He gave us Himself. And our identity is in. To be a convert, it's not enough to do what converts need to do. You need to tap into the Abish. The Abish has to give you the say that I make you a convert. Until Hashem speaks, you're not a convert. Or to say it in other words, just like everybody understands, that a single man and a single woman is a whole person, and you put them together under the hope and they become a couple, there is nothing new physically here. Other than the Abish's mitzvah, it's the Abish's mitzvah that makes them new. When you have 9 men in a room, you have 9 individuals, a 10th guy walks in, they become a minion. They don't become a minion because the 10th guy walked in. They become a minion because God makes them into a new entity called a minion because there's 10 bodies. But the newness is not from the 10 bodies. The newness is not from the man and the woman under the chuppah. The newness is from the presence of the Abish. You follow? Therefore, the Rebbe says, a person doesn't become a convert because he does a bris, he goes to the mikveh, he brings karbonos, he says Nasa v'nishma. He becomes a convert because God converts him. And God converts you when He gives you the Torah. This is why, although the conversion took place the day before, we were not converted fully until the Abish gave us the Torah on Shabbat. the 6th of Sivan. Beginning with the Teres Hadid. That's what the Rebbe is saying. A convert to the new person. You become a new person because God renewed you. When did God renew them? Not when they did the act of conversion. But He gave us the thing. Make a little sense? Huh? Make a little sense?
Just enough to be confusing.
Just enough to be confusion. Confusion is not even intelligent, I always say. So get away with that one. Next week, we're going to start a new sikha. And the new sikha is going to continue on this theme. The theme is that until Hashem converted us, the Judaism that we had was foundationally different than the Judaism we were going to have. So to say it again, we had been converted on Friday. We did everything we could to become Jewish, including saying Asher and Israel. But we were not really new until Hashem spoke. And therefore, everything we did before was only for them. Okay? We'll call it a class, call it a week. I'll see you next Wednesday. I want your patience. You're welcome very much. Okay, so I have another scene. I got a lot of stuff for you next week. I really thought I would be spending most of this class on the next week's class, but I am a familiar book. You always have the same question. Why does the T have a U in it? You can give two answers to that question. You make me tired. Or I'm tired until I include you. You get the perfect reaction. You should do voiceover.
Thank you very much. See you next week.
Kalak, yes. Okay, Mr. Yapik cannot go eat lunch.
Thank you.
I said, thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for this class.
Bye. Good job.
The only thing I have one comment.
Say that again.
I have one comment
What?
about your example with the,
Hey, the earthenware vessel, yeah.
yeah, because for me, seems like it's not the right example for Judaism, that they were the same, but they became like in you with the Torah. Because with Torah, they also received Neshama in the soul. They received Litorah, Mitzvah, and they came through the whole transformation, and they're not the same.
Right, so everything you said is true. I was using the example simply to talk about the word new, right, as if you were not there before. And this aspect, yeah, we changed a lot, but changing and being new are not the same. New. That's why I use that example. But then I used two more examples. First example was from an earthenware vessel. The second example was from a couple. Third example was from me. I used three examples. But the first one is not good enough, you have the second one. The second one's not good enough, you have the third one.
as opposed to